So today we are speaking with a legend, an absolute legend, who is sponsored by Pearl Drums and who is in across the pond, of course. I think he's in Great Britain. I'd like to introduce Robin Guy. Welcome to the show.
Hey, man, how's it going? I'm definitely in Great Britain, in just under London in Croydon, but it's all good. How are you doing over there, man?
Sounds great, man. Your connection, it sounds like you're next door, which is perfect. So I feel
Excellent.
We're hanging out together on the phone, man. Here we go.
That's what it's about. Let's go.
Robin, you've been such a legend. You've done so much drum and percussion work for the last 30 plus years. I'd like to start off by naming for the listening audience some of the acts you have played with.
Well, that'll be the first half hour of the show, I think, buddy. You know what I mean? But like, fire away and let's see if I can remember them too. Hey, go for it.
Here I go. I've got this written down, man, because I feel like extremely important. Okay. Sack Trick, SHAM 69, Bruce Dickinson, GMT, which is Guy McCoy Torme, the Bay City Rollers with Eric Faulkner, Rachel Stamp, All About Eve, Billy Liar, Martin Gretsch, Cat, Casey Chaos, Faith No More, Anti-Product, Deadline, The Conspirators, King Django.
Yep, that's right.
Chemical Chaos, Palma International, Schoolgirl Kiss, The Master Blaster, Bittersweet, Vatican Roulette, Violent New Breed, Kitty Hudson, Ragdolls, Hang 'em High, Sperm Whale, Skunk and Nancy, which I didn't know, The Fiascos, who is currently, you guys are still playing. Tiger Tails, King Blues, and also I hear you're fronting your own band. I don't know if it's full time, but it's called Robin Guy's Trophy Wife.
I think, some of the information's spot on. Some of it's sort of rock and roll Chinese whispers, but you're pretty much in the zone there. Yeah.
Okay. Is there anybody that you know that I missed? Any bands that you have played with that you can think of that I?
Well, that's the problem. It's like those guessing games where they show you a bunch of items on an escalator or a treadmill, and you have to remember them all. I mean, you got most. I mean, like the thing is, when people say, "Hey, what do you do?" and I say, "I'm a drummer," and they go, "Hey, have you played in any bands?" I say, "Yeah, I played in loads of bands." And what I usually do is I say to them, what's your genre of music? What's your favorite kind of, ballpark? Are you a rocker? Are you a punk? Are you a jazzer? Are you a blues freak? Are you into metal? Hip hop, drum and bass? And they, if they say pop, I'll say, oh, well, I'm in the video with Ollie Murs, which is a song called Heart Skips a Beat. It's had like 50 million views on YouTube, went to #1 in this country, and it's a pure pop dude. If they say, oh, I'm into metal, I go, hey, I played with Bruce Dickinson, a singer of the biggest heavy metal band in the world, Iron Maiden. And they go, oh, right, And if they say, hey, I'm into punk, I go, I'm in the best punk band in the world, SHAM 69, And they go, oh, my God. So I kind of, I feel like I'm a sort of a rock and roll buffet, and I've got something for everyone.
That's it. You represent exactly what this radio show represents. Because we're into rock and roll, punk, metal, 50s, blues, rock, all of it.
I always say to people, like, there's only two kinds of music, good and bad. And that's it. That's how I run my life. It's like, there's good metal and bad metal. There's good folk music. There's bad folk music. There's good opera, bad opera, whatever. I love listening to folk music and chilled out stuff and acoustic stuff. And I love hardcore, and metal. And, so if it's good, it's good. It doesn't matter to me whether it's pop. Good pop to me is like, what I grew up in with the sort of 80s, which is, early Madonna, Duran Duran, Adam and the Ants, The Police, Madness. That to me is the best pop in the world. You know what I mean?
That leads me to my first question. I hate to obsess over this, but I have to. You were in a version of the Bay City Rollers.
This is true, yeah.
Wow. How did that happen? How did you first meet up with Eric Faulkner?
Oh, my God. How did it happen? That's a really good question. I have to think about that. But, this is the thing. Oh, no, you know what? Yeah, this is the thing with basically this. My motto for life is do stuff. 2 words, do stuff. And the reason for that formula is because if you do stuff, then stuff will happen. And if you don't do stuff, then no stuff will happen. So I tend to say yes to playing with bands because, you learn so much. Sometimes you're thrown into the fire pit and, you got like an afternoon of rehearsals and you're off on a European tour. or you're dealing with, one guy who's tricky, or one guy who's like the guy's a casual, or the guitarist is a real stickler for this, and you learn so much by pushing yourself into these situations and trying to, do your best to please the artist you're working for and stuff. So
absolutely,
I've said yes to more people than saying no. You know what I mean? So back in the day, I ended up rescuing a band called the Guitar Gangsters, which were like a 3-piece, punky rock and roll band. And I literally learned their songs on the way to rehearsal, did a rehearsal, listened to the songs on the way home on a cassette in the car. That's how old this is. Went to sleep, woke up, and then we flew to Germany and played a show. And we were sort of, special guests from the slightly just under the top band. And we got all the crowd chanting our name, and everyone did a really good job, and we rocked it. And the headline band was a band called The Business, which is a good punk rock and roll band. And they saw what happened with me playing with the Guitar Gangsters, and we ended up hanging out, having some drinks. And the singer came up to me, Mickey Fitz, and he was like, "I've been watching you, son. I'm going to steal you," or, whatever he said. So, fast forward a few months, and I ended up playing with The Business, and I did a whole bunch of tours with them, and a crazy band, really good music. The album's been produced by the guys in Rancid, Tim Armstrong, Lars Friedrichsen, and all that. We literally did an afternoon rehearsal, then got on the plane and went and did like 11 shows in 10 shows in 11 days in Germany, in Europe. And then in 2004, we went to do 55 shows in 60 days in pretty much every state in America, which was a learning curve. Let's just say that it made me a man. And I did the same in 2006. We did 55 shows in 60 days, and all manner of chaos happened. And, it was on a tour called The Punks versus Psychos. But this long-winded answer to your Bay City Rollers story is the fact that Mark Brennan, the original bass player of The Business, who now runs a record label, he was friends, or I think he signed Eric Faulkner, or maybe he put out some records for Eric on his own label. And then Eric contacted him and said, "Hey, look, I want to put a band together, but I don't want to be like," because there's two kinds of, but at that point there was two Bay City Rollers. There was Les McEwen's legendary Bay City Rollers, and then there was Eric Faulkner's Bay City Rollers. And obviously for legal reasons, neither of them could call themselves the Bay City Rollers. So hence,
what year would that have been, Robin? What year was that? Do you know?
This has got to be 2010, I think. That kind of thing. Maybe 2010, 2011, that kind of thing. But so, I've done all the stuff with The Business and whatnot. But like I said, Eric had obviously contacted Mark Brennan and said, "Hey, man, I need a drummer." But the thing is, the cool thing with Eric is he wanted to put like a kind of punky rock and roll live band together. He didn't want to have what basically Les was doing, which was a very professional, very polished, sort of theater type band where everyone, wore like a uniform and it was no doubt no perfect. And Eric was like, he's friends with Dee Dee Ramone, and he had a bit of punk and dirt under his fingernails, and so he wanted to put like a 4-piece energetic rock and roll band together, which was obviously much more up my street. And so when you get the recommendation from the ex-bass player of The Business, it was a really nice thing. And obviously Eric trusted him, and so I suddenly get this call, and Robin, come and do this thing with us. And the bass player wasn't happening at the time, and obviously with the Bay City Rollers, you need the harmonies, and everyone in the band has to be like a great singer, especially if there's only 4 of you. And so I got my friend from Rachel Stamp, which is David Ryder Plangley, who's the front man and bass player from that band. I said, "Hey, dude, look, and he's into old T-Rex and stuff like that, and much more like 70s glam and stuff. So he's straight up for it. He was like, yeah, I'd love to come and do this. So he fitted right in. And then we had Phil Hendricks, the other guitarist, and he was the guitarist, lead singer, front man of the band called The Stiffs. So and that was a kind of blondie type, punky rock and roll band back then. And so you got this band of like kind of 4 frontmen, 3 lead singers. So we had it nailed. So it was a great little energetic punky rock and roll band playing all these cool glam pop rock songs, and then through me having a sort of good rep in the rock and roll and the punky world, Darren Russell Smith, the guy who runs Rebellion, which is the biggest UK punk festival over in the UK, he booked Eric Faulkner's Bay City Rollers, on the basis that obviously, I'd played his festival with the Business and, the Grit and Splodge Nessa Bounds and the Rock and Roll Gypsies and Sham 69, all these bands. And so he's like, look, it's got to be a cool punky band to have, and we were a little bit sort of reticent thinking, oh god, we're gonna die a death here. All these hardcore punks are going to be like, oh, what's this rubbish stuff. But of course the fact is, most of the age ballpark of everyone, old school punks, the fact that they were probably 10 or 12 years old when the first single they bought was probably Shang-a-Lang. So they went crazy,
right,
and they absolutely loved it. We went down the Storm, and all these old punk rockers are bopping away to a packed-out house at Rebellion. So that's obviously a very long answer, but like that shows you why you got to do stuff, because you never know who's going to recommend you and where you're going to end up. If I'd have said to you, joining a punk rock band, the Business, would lead to me playing in the Bay City Rollers.
That's awesome.
It's crazy.
How many gigs did you? How many shows do you think you played with the Rollers?
Good question. We played quite a lot. I mean, we didn't necessarily do crazy tours, like 29 shows in 30 days or whatever, but we'd bop up and down the country a few times, and then we'd mainly sort of, we'd fly out for certain shows. We played an ice skating rink in Austria, and so we're on stage. We're getting introduced by like the town's mayor, in full gold bling, and all his necklace garb and all that kind of stuff. And we get started, steaming into the set, and realize all the audience are up in the audience part of the seats where you would watch a hockey band play on the ice. But then on the ice were like hundreds of people all dressed up as in these like costumes. Like there was an ice skating lion, just like playing these songs. And I'm looking over to David going, what the hell is this? What's going on? And we're literally, all these characters on ice are skating around, and we're just rocking through the set. So hilarious. You put that on your CV. Do you know what I mean? What did you do? Oh, I played an ice skating rink in Austria.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, you
so
just
what
take
happened with that? Yeah. Are you still in touch with Eric today?
I haven't heard from Eric for quite a while. I mean, he's quite he's not really on social media, and this was also back in the day. I mean, I think it was the fact that none of us could really comprehend how big the Bay City Rollers were. It was like Beatles-esque level, and they had obviously all the crazy fans good, but also crazy fans bad, and they'd be stalked and just total craziness. And so he was I think he'd been there and done that and worn the t-shirt several times, and he would just wanted to be like keep himself to himself, so he wouldn't broadcast stuff on social media. And of course we were like, well, no, everyone's got to broadcast stuff on social media. This is what you do. This is how you get people to gigs. And I think he was basically worried that someone would, I don't know, trace him and his address maybe through some Facebook or MySpace page or whatever it was, and so he wouldn't get involved with that. I think he'd have other people do stuff for him, which is very convoluted and complicated. And whereas nowadays, you could probably get in touch with Ozzy Osbourne via Facebook if you wanted to, if you knew how to, because everyone's at the click of a button to, for good or for bad. Whereas Eric kind of, he pulled away from that. So, kept himself solitary. So in that respect, I'm not even sure if there was like an Eric Faulkner website. Maybe there was, but someone else certainly did it. So yeah, he's definitely sort of retracted from the scene.
Did you guys record together or just play live shows?
I'm pretty certain it was just live. I'm trying to think now if we did sort of radio shows and that kind of thing, but it was mainly just live kick-ass rock and roll stuff.
Nice. Yeah, I'm a fan. I just wonder, did you ever get to meet any of the other Rollers or Pat McGlynn?
I didn't. I mean, yeah, it's crazy how it sort of all panned out to a degree, because I think when Eric was maybe pulling back from the scene and doing less gigs, Les McKeown got in touch with Phil Hendricks and so I said, hey, you're basically all rehearsed up. You're good to go. I can offer you, you know, I don't know, world tours or whatever, you know. And it was one of those situations for Phil where he's like, you know, we loved it playing with Eric, but you know, the problem is what a lot of sort of fans don't realize is if, you know, my take on being in a band is you're in a band as long as that band's a band. You know, if the band's doing stuff, then you do stuff in the band and you're in the band. If the band doesn't do anything, you're technically still in the band unless you've left or been fired or whatever. But, you know, there's not much sort of rock and roll joy to be had by going, hey, I'm in this band, but we're not doing anything. So obviously Phil took the chance to go and tour the world with Les or whatever, you know, and that was great for him.
That's interesting because Phil Hendricks has actually been a guest on this show. I forgot that he was actually in that band. So you were in the lineup of the Rollers with Phil Hendricks.
That's right, yeah. And it was a great band. I mean, there was, you know, without boasting, there was nothing we couldn't do. There was no harmonies we couldn't pull off. Phil would sing some Bye Bye Baby stuff. David would sing some other stuff. You know, you got me performing at the back. You got four frontmen rocking it out. You know, Eric, it allowed Eric to, he got his fiddle out. We did a sort of drum solo going into the fiddle breakdown and the thrash part of that and straight into some other songs. I mean, we all had a lot of fun. You know, and Eric had that glint in his eye backstage. Oh, you'll like this one, you know, and he'll play some tune and we'll all just start jamming. And it was really, really, when it was good, it was really, really good. You know, when it's happening, it was really happening. And we'd blow a lot of people's minds because I think people would expect this kind of, you know, static Bay City Rollers cover band, which would be very sort of maybe clean and, you know, clean cut and whatever. And we'd go out there with, you know, balls to the wall and rock it out with drum solos, fiddle solos, and a four-piece rock and roll band. It was great fun, you know.
Sounds like Eric was just a very kind of very private sort of guy, huh?
I mean, my take is, like I said, I think everyone in that band kind of got burned by the level of fame and you know, they had. You know, they're obviously incredibly young and they shot to one of the biggest bands in the world, and then obviously all the record company stuff and the fact that, you know, the whole lawsuit with EMI or whatever, you know, with the whole millions being owed here and there, and the record company kept delaying the court trial and for silly reasons here and there. I think it just burned everyone out. Yeah, like I said, there's obviously, you know, there'll be fact checkers out there that know a lot more than me, but the general gist was like, I think he'd just be like, oh, you know, the industry wasn't that kind to those guys. You know.
So, Robin, to move away from the Rollers topic, can I ask you, which band did you spend the most time in?
It's a good question as well. Well, I mean, you know, one of the main bands that I'm sort of known for, you know, is Rachel Stamp. And I knew, as I mentioned before, David Ryder Prangley, the bass player, singer, frontman of Rachel Stamp. Well, we knew each other when I moved to Wales for a year or so back in sort of, I don't know, 89 to join a band called Rag Dolls. And David was in a band over there called Hollyweird. And again, it's a crazy incestuous sort of musical connections because the hot band at the time was a band called Tiger Tails, Breaking Big, sort of big glam rock kind of vibe. And David knew those guys. And, you know, fast forward, whatever, 20, 30 years, I'm in Tiger Tails. Before that, I you know, when it all sort of when Rag Dolls sort of disintegrated and I came back home and I went back up to London and I bumped into David again and I was like, hey, I'm looking for a band. He said, what have you been doing? I said, well, I've just done Top of the Pops with Faith No More, you know, dropped in the biggest name in rock, in metal ever. And he was like, oh, great. Well, cool. That's great. You know, speak to you soon if I hear anything. And literally a week later, he comes up to me at some rock festival and he's like, dude, our drummer's just shot his finger in a car door. We're playing the Camden Underworld in a week or 2 weeks. Can you do it? I was like, yeah, you know, yeah, that's for me. And so, you know, as I wasn't part of the original lineup of Rachel Stamp because they'd been signed before to Warner Brothers and then, you know, the A&R men left and they got left without a deal and all that kind of stuff. But then I came in and I'm part of what's called the classic lineup, which was sort of the one that we took it to the streets and, you know, we just hit the road hard and we basically sold out every club in all the toilets on the UK circuit, and then moved it up to sort of bigger clubs and then theatres, and eventually we'd headline the Astoria to 2,000 people without a record deal. We'd be getting posters in Kerrang and Metal Hammer and all the rock mags, and, you know, doing videos that were like, you know, on MTV.
Awesome.
And getting in the charts and, stuff like that. So kind of bittersweet that we weren't signed, but we had fans that would faint when we turn up at gigs and riot when we do a secret show, a secret show, all this. So, everything that you would ever dream of sort of achieving or doing, I did with sort of Rachel Stamp, all the sort of, the fame, but not the fortune, if you will. But it was fantastic. And it was more just, it wasn't necessarily long time, like it wasn't like decades, but it was just everything you could possibly do with the band was we packed into that band. And then 2002 2002 I quit, and then we got back together, a big reunion show at 2009, and then every couple of years we'll sort of basically get back together and bust out some songs and everyone have a really good time. So yeah, that's kind of like that,
Well, thanks for the info on that. I was wondering how you got hooked up with Bruce Dickinson from Iron Maiden.
Well, obviously, there's another wonderful story with that. Basically, I lived in this crazy household in London, West London. And one of the flatmate guys was a bass player friend of mine called Chris Dale. And Chris Dale used to play bass in a band called the Atom Seed, which was basically kind of like Britain's answer to the Red Hot Chili Peppers, back in the sort of, late 80s type vibe. And when Bruce quit Maiden, he formed a band called Skunkworks. And Chris was the bass player. And then obviously they, toured the world, put out an album or two or whatever. And then Bruce came back to Maiden. But Chris had a kind of a fun band, I won't say side project, but it was just a mental band called Sack Trick, which is kind of in a nutshell like Red Hot. It's kind of like Monty. If Monty Python was the crew of Monty Python were playing in the Red Hot Chili Peppers, we'd sing songs about penguins and camels and blue ice cream, and we'd all dress up with the most ludicrous stage costumes. But the thing is, everyone in the band was a complete killer player. They could shred anything. So we'd actually cover like Racer X songs, which is like the guy, Paul Gilbert from Mr. Big, he was in Racer X, and Scott Travis from Judas Priest, all these crazy, insane players. And Chris Dale can play like Billy Sheehan, So musically, it was insane, and image-wise, it was totally nutty, and it was just mega fun. And Bruce was still in touch with Chris as pals. They got drinking and that, and Bruce, because he's got that sort of Monty Python English sense of humor, he absolutely loved Sack Trick. So he'd come and see us play a few times, and he'd get up on stage and sing a little song here and there, and we'd all just have some fun. And then one time we're playing a little club called the Kingston Peel. And Bruce brought Yannick Gers down from Maiden, and he's in the audience having a good time. And we did the gig, and I'm packing down at the end of the show, and Chris comes up to me and goes, "Hey, Robin, I've just been talking to Bruce, and he wants to put a band together to do some headlining some huge European festivals, and he wants you to play drums." And of course, I literally said something like, don't joke on, this is a sacred subject for me, and he said, "Robin, I'm not joking. He wants you to be his drummer." And my jaw hit the floor, and the rest is history. And bearing in mind, you've got to put this in perspective. At the age of 13, I discovered Iron Maiden. They changed my life.
Oh God!
So, a couple of decades or whatever it was later, I'm playing to 40,000 people, playing, The Prisoner, Power Slave, Revelations, Bring Your Daughters.
The Paul Di'Anno era Iron Maiden too was so awesome.
Well, this is the thing. It was actually Killers, the second record with Di'Anno with Iron Maiden, that I discovered in a French exchange when I was 13.
Me too. That's the first one I discovered.
Dude, that's just, so for that reason alone, it will always have a candle in my heart. You know what I mean? That, I love all the great albums, but I mean, to me, the first concert I saw was Somewhere in Time. So that to me is the other album I just like. It's just so special for me. But Killers. I mean, shit. And then I became friends with Clive Burr. And interviewed him a couple of times. We played a few Clive Aids, which is a benefit gig for Clive Burr, who had multiple sclerosis, and now sadly not with us anymore. But me and a friend of mine, we managed to sell his drum kit to the Hard Rock Cafe. for $20,000, and we got like a red carpet event organized, and we presented Clive Burr with a check, and in presenting him was Bruce Dickinson, Adrian Smith, Ian Pace from Deep Purple, which was his drum hero that he'd never met, Tony Iommi, for God's sake, you know what I mean?
Wow.
Yannick. I mean, it was insane. Yeah, absolutely brilliant, you know. And I got to set up the Number of the Beast drum kit on this drum podium riser at the Hard Rock Cafe in Piccadilly, London. It was insane, you know. So yeah, all these things came out of that. You know what I mean? So it's great having Chris Dale as a flatmate. Hey.
Well, that does conclude part 1 of our interview with Robin Guy, drummer. Wow, very captivating stuff. Next Sunday, we will present part 2, which is exactly the same length as part 1. Yeah, 25 minutes. Thank you for being at KSKQ and the Almighty Church of Rock radio show. I'm Reverend Derek Moody.